As I say, it's only for the males, not for the females. But if you're going to pull out, you've got an Australian singlet on, take that Australian singlet off, because if you pull out for a personal reason. You don't let down your country. So you take that Australian singlet off, and say, well, I'm not letting down my country, I'm letting down myself, because you continue to run on, you tough it out. When you're in an Australian singlet, you're representing far more than just yourself.
What was the hardest day at the office for you? Is there one that sticks out in your mind where you
pretty
really
clearly
think it was hard?
Oh my gosh, it was hard at Barcelona in '92, and it was at the Olympics, unfortunately for me. 21 good marathons and one bad one out of my career, and it happened to be at the Olympic Games. And that's where it is. Seriously, if it was just for me, my wife Tanya was out in the course, Chris Wardlaw was there saying, just stop, you're looking terrible, it's going to be hard, the last bit was up a hill. There was no way I was stopping, mate, because I didn't care. But if I had to walk in, I was still going to cross that finish line and be proud of my performance on that day, irrespective of where I finished. Right, it wasn't the result I was after, but there's still some satisfaction in finishing when you're representing Australia at the Olympic Games.
Yeah, I think you and Troopy say that to a lot of the younger runners as well. We need to sort of have that passed on as a legacy and a baton, that you don't want to step off the course and not finish when you're running for your country.
No, hopefully that'll continue. I don't know if we're old school or what that is, but it's something that we certainly run, and we run that line. And Deacon Lisa, we're all the same. That's the tradition of Australian marathon running, and we certainly want that to continue. And we are Australians. We're tough. We just get the job done. I don't know how we do it. We punch above our. We've got plenty of phrases that we use. So why we wouldn't want to continue that? That's what's great about our country.
Look, I know Deke's spoken about this concern about whether there's, in the age of technology and Gen Y, whether there's too many people sit in their comfort zone. We've both got children. Like me, you're probably a little bit tougher on your kids, being old school. But is there a concern amongst you that we're not seeing the depth, the pool of runners, young men and women who are prepared to do hard work, slog out the miles and hang tough?
A little bit. I think there's a bit of a tendency. We used to run 2.5 hours on a Sunday morning. The day all marathon runners run their long run, and now then it sort of got back to 2 hours. Now I think some people are actually calling an hour and a half a long run. Well, that was a midweek run for Rob in those days. So I think there's probably a bit of a tendency, and we can blame our success, because I think Craig Mottram and Benita Johnson, Benita Willis, those guys, they've had so much success over 5K and shorter events that we've probably gone a little bit back to 1,500 5K, and that's where the fascination is, and that's fine. It's a bit easier. You still have to run hard and train hard, but you're not out there for quite as long, and there's not that same risk of not having a good day. You can only run a couple of marathons a year, whereas 5K and 1,500s, you can run, one of those every couple of weeks. So it's changed a little bit, and we talk about, there's a few Africans up the front there. I don't know about technology in Africa. I reckon they're probably pretty simple, and sometimes it allows them to just focus on what is important to them. And we've got lots of choices, our kids, and we would never complain about the lifestyle we have here, but maybe just within that, we've got a little bit gone away from just that hard-nosed of being out running for a couple of hours.
Well, I guess it was something that you did naturally, whereas these days, younger kids probably need a bit more of a nudge to spend that time running. I've got a 13-year-old, 14-year-old who's a runner, and runner or two in your family as well, Steve, So you probably do need to push them a bit, and certainly these guys are pushing themselves fairly hard, although at a measured pace in the probably coming up to about 9 kilometres. A few twists and turns we've seen as they still continue to head south, the lead pack. So we've got a good strong pack of 9 or 10 runners there. The Japanese Kawauchi, Takahashi and Ito tucked in there, dominated by the lead runners, Wanjuki, Serum, Gebru, the Ethiopian. He's a bit alone there, tucked in behind.
They tend to not do a lot of work, though, the Ethiopians. Very smart marathon runners, and you won't see him. He won't be very visible. They'll be visible when it counts, I can tell you. He's probably I think whilst there's a lot of focus on the Kenyan runners, I think the Ethiopians are the ones to watch out for. So just be aware of Gebru in there. Short, stocky, won't do too much work. He'll just stay out of trouble.
What's the at the elite level? What's the code of honour about doing your share of work, particularly when you've got paces like this? Is there any dishonour in sitting back and letting other blokes take all the hard work?
Not really, no. But it'll be interesting if the paces start to struggle a bit, or there's a bit of a change up at the front. Then we'll see a bit of tactics come into play, and they'll encourage each other for a little while. They'll often, they'll help each other out a bit, to be honest, because especially if they stay on this pace and they know that there are time bonuses and they can run a fast time, then they'll be very aware of helping each other out to keep that pace rolling along.
So we're looking at the lead pack. Robert Mwangi is the tall one you see just tucked behind Wanjuki. He's the other tall runner there. Gebru, the Ethiopian, Serum Ito from Japan. These guys there, we're looking at their racing flats these days. Most people do their training in quite heavy, chunky trainers, but when it comes to racing, any grams you can take off the soles of your feet to make your feet feel, even sort of psychologically, it's more a benefit than anything really, isn't it, Steve?
It is. We had really light racing flats. They've got a little bit more support now because people are finding that when you're getting fatigued, you actually want a little bit of response back from the road. So rather than hitting the road and sort of being flat and dissipating, a bit of energy, they like a bit of responsiveness. So they've actually gone back to having a little bit of support in their runners, but they'll probably have a little bit of support. Technology's gone to the way that they can use material that, whilst it looks like it's got a bit of support, there's no weight in it, so it works out very well. And you don't want to be carrying any extra weight if you don't have to over 42k.
Might have been just a little bit ahead of your time, but when I was starting out, two extraordinary runners, Gerard Barrett and Laurie Whitty, used to run marathons barefoot.
Right. Yeah.
They might have only run one or two. They ran track races and some road races. I couldn't believe it. I think Laurie used to tape his feet a little bit, but to think you'd even contemplate a marathon barefoot was extraordinary to me.
Well, they're ahead of their time, I think, because barefoot running's become very popular now, and a lot of the Africans, certainly cross-country, they would run barefoot, and it's no surprise, you would often see an African runner running bare feet, so it's no reason why they can't, and you toughen your feet up. And I think the jarring, I just, the barefoot running I've done, I like a bit of support, so it's not for me, but it's a bit of a mixed game. Some people like it and feel comfortable doing it. Not carrying any weight. What did I say? What did I say? Something about are you wearing bare feet? People keep telling me off for saying you're wearing you can't wear bare feet. You got bare feet. You don't wear anything when you're barefoot.
They are there. And look, that's what some people think might be one of the secrets to the success of the Africans. They do a lot of barefoot running. It's simply a culture and a financial thing. They can't afford shoes. I've just finished a fantastic book which has given me a really good insight. Running with the Kenyans by an English writer by the name of Adaranan Finn. And he moved his family of his wife and 3 children, lived in the legendary town of Eton. And I know you've been there, Steve. I want to get your take on this. But he tried to find the secret of Kenyan running. There's about 10 different things, and I'll get you to comment on this, Steve, that he reckons might be the secret to Kenyan and East African running. A tough, active childhood because they run early. They build that aerobic house. Barefoot running is in there. Running at altitude, diet, simple approach to training. The mental toughness, and they don't have alternatives. In other sports, don't have technology for distractions. The culture of running. And I guess let me ask you about that one. This we try to build this in Australia, and through your era, yourself and Deke and Lisa Ondiki were great role models. But there's 5,000 role models in any Kenyan town or village. That really makes a big difference. And some of those other things help too.
Oh yeah, and then obviously it's their biggest sport. So like we have NRL or AFL or rugby union or netball. For them, it's running, and that's for them the focus. That's where all their role models are. So they're surrounded by it, and if you're surrounded by it, that's what's going to happen. You're going to get that culture, and they want to follow in footsteps of their famous predecessors.
So the 10k split, spot on, Steve. 30-39 through 10k. So we've got that lead pack. Wanjuki is officially sort of listed as the quickest through there, but as you can see, we've got about 8 or 9 runners together. So That's record pace. The kilometres roll through pretty quickly as they move down through this section, so they're still heading south.
I think they're in Hedges Avenue, that $1 Million Row as it's known. So great shade in there, and it's a very narrow street through there. And you see those little speed humps that they're up and over, but otherwise a really nice place to run, and very comfortable in here. Great shade from the tall buildings, and they'll actually come back through this section. So they're heading out now down towards going as far south as they go. They go down about 15k to just to Burleigh Heads and turn around and come back. So they'll also come back up through here. And at the moment, though, they're heading south and looking like they're pretty established there with that pack. I think there's about 10 of them in that group. We're assuming there's 2 or 3 pacemakers there, so it's still a good quality pack to make sure that pace keeps rolling.
So we're on record pace, but we haven't banked a lot of time. So I said to you earlier, I was hoping we might get something in the 2.8s, but
no chance.
Yeah, no, I know you said that earlier. I was, what's that saying? Tell him he's dreaming.
No.
So this is record pace, but it's not going to be anything extraordinary. It's not going to be in the 2.7 and probably not 2.8 territory. So
unless the only way that could happen is that the guys in the pack, they're happy to sit with the paces now, and they're on that pace that's expected. If they're feeling so good that when the pacing's starting to struggle a bit and they go around, they just absolutely put an injection of pace in. So, but at the moment, I mean, I'm slightly worried. I'd like them to be right on the pace. They're probably 5 or 6 seconds off. They can pick that up very quickly within a 5K. But we tend to talk in 5Ks. There's 8 5Ks plus 2 at the end. So we tend to work in 5K lots. It's a nice, consistent distance to give us a bit of a true indication of the pace. So the fact that there's so many of them and they're together, I think they'll be right and they'll be able to handle that. I think the race record's a possibility. I think Deke's Australian record, all-comers record's pretty safe at this point in time.
Now, given that we've got some paces and quite a few Africans, the legendary African tactic of surges, of putting in, a sub-3 kilometre surge, between 20 and 30k or a series of those. Any chance you think we're going to see something like that today, given that we've got a number of Africans?
No, I don't think so, and that can happen in a championship because you're very concerned about winning the race. So you might make a surge and break the group up, and then hopefully you can slow down a little bit. But in this event, it's really about getting the victory in a fast time. So I think you'll find that they'll be very even split. So there might be a surge in the second half when it becomes more of a tactical race to win, but at this point in time, I think they'd be focused on the time.
So Aaron Pulford, who we think might be the leading Trans-Tasman runner, has gone through 10k in 33.18. He's got a handy lead on Rowan Walker, the leading Australian runner. So 33.18, that's sort of around 2:15 territory, isn't it,
well,
Steve?
if you're 10k and he's 3 minutes behind this lead group, so you multiply that by 4, so that's 12 minutes behind. So he's probably on about 2:22 pace, which is
okay. My calculation's out.
Yeah, he's probably. Well, I might be wrong, but that's my maths. I'm a simple man. I work in simple ways, and hopefully that's about right, I reckon.
But Aaron, being his first marathon, he'd be wanting to run conservatively as well.
He would.
You wouldn't be blasting it out and trying to get too far ahead of your splits.
No.
Looking at the women's time through 10k there in 34.53. So Alice Garici. The other African, two other Africans, Helen Mugu, Gordy Tom Tasima, they're all together.
They've got going a bit, actually. They're quick at that 5K. So, and it's no surprise we mentioned Aaron Pulford. The women are only just a bit outside a minute behind his time. So if you're multiplying that by 4, you're adding about 4 or 5 minutes on. So they're probably on about 2:26 pace, I reckon, at the moment. So they're rolling along very nicely, those ladies.
Of course, we've got a number of women who are 2:26 runners. We talk a lot about the men's record raising the credentials. Mm-hmm. We've had good women's runners over the years, but if we break the women's record by 2 or 3 minutes, that takes that race into a whole new league of elite runners that we're going to attract here as well.
As well, exactly. And as I say, I think not that we're wagering, but I'm very focused
no betting
on
involved in this webcast.
That's right. The women's race is a quality field. As I say, they've got a bit more of a buffer. Their personal best times, 2:24, 2:26. for them to be out towards 2:30, that's pretty realistic. Whereas the men, they've got to be pretty much on their game today. They've only got, a couple of minutes up their sleeve from the course record. So it's a bit tougher to just be right on your game today.
So we've got a lead pack there of 9 runners. So that's good that we've got plenty of guys together. We will see that splinter. Would you be worried, Steve, if that 9 is sort of suddenly down to 3 by the time they come back at 30k? That spells a bit of trouble, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, and I would be worried. And they will then start to get focused because I reckon we all think about a podium finish. So you're thinking about trying to get in the first 3. So if you're down to only 3 of you, well, you start thinking, well, here I am. I've got a podium finish. Now it's just a matter of holding my race together. So if you're thinking of the paces, we're assuming there's 2 or 3 of those. So if they drop out and we're down to only 6, then it becomes more of a tactical race. So I'd be a little bit worried if this pack starts to dwindle too much more. We're so early yet, we're on the way out. We're so far. Not only are we going out, we've got to turn around and come back, go through the start-finish area, and run all the way north for that section of the journey. So it's pretty early days yet. I'm seeing some sun, so I'm wondering. Although we know from the temperature, it was started at just over 12 degrees, I think, and was getting up to about 17 by the end of the race, which is not enormously hot. So it does look like there's a bit of direct sun out there, though. So they're out of that shade a little bit as they head towards Burleigh. So maybe and down to Miami. So maybe it's a bit warmer.
So they get to Burleigh Heads at the southern end of the coast. That's the turnaround around 15.5 kilometres. We're seeing them heading to the drink station. Steve, is it upsetting if you miss a drink at a station? Is that something that can throw you out, particularly if it looks like being a warm day?
If it compounds. So if you've missed the one before and you then miss 2 in a row and you suddenly think, gee, then if I get to the next one, it's 15k before I've had a drink, So you certainly don't want to miss 2 in a row, and you may see situations where a runner may even go back, so they might stop and go. They might consider quickly in their mind whether it's worth getting a drink, and there's definitely a chance you might yell out and say, hey, you're technically not meant to share a drink, to be honest. You're not allowed to do that, but we're seeing that happen here. And wisdom and common sense would prevail. If someone's missed a drink, you just hand it back, and it probably would be water. I'm not sure if I want the Kawauchi's honey, lime and lemon
orange
juice. So I don't think I want that one. So I might not be sharing his drink, but most of the others would have an electrolyte drink or water, just a basic water. And whilst the special drinks are only every 5 kilometres, they do have at the 2.5 kilometre mark, they have a sponge station with water. So they've got the opportunity to get one in between as well.
Steve, the thing that intrigues me about the elite guys, now that you're running a little bit slower, most runners running over 2.5, 3 hours are going to use goos or gels, those carbohydrate shots. But the elite guys don't seem to use those, or you rarely seem to use them?
No, they tend to not need them because they're only out there for a couple of hours. They probably haven't got into that real area of it's more of an endurance event. They're running a short enough time that they don't really need to replace with a gel or two. If they're going for their gels, I'd be suggesting they're probably not having a good day. I reckon that's a last resort that you're thinking, well, my race is probably over and I need to just get some gels and a bit of electrolyte or a bit of sugar on board just to get me through the race.
But so it's not a commensurate sort of thing, the portion of your race, even if you're running at this sort of pace, it's not sort of 30 to 32k for the elite guys. They still need that carbohydrate replenishment.
Well, they have it in their special drinks, and they might change their concentration. So whilst we talk about electrolyte in their drinks, so they've got their Endura in, they might have a higher percentage of water early on in the event, and then they might change the concentration so they've got a little bit more sugar and electrolyte later in the event so that tops up that bit, or vice versa. So they will have different strengths, and you've got to remember that whilst we encourage the other runners to use gels, it's mainly because they don't have options to have their special drinks out on the course. Only the elites get to put their drink bottle out. The rest have got to take water or the drink, the Endura that might be on the table. It could be watered down. It mightn't be at the strength that you want. So to have a gel with you is a good safety measure. And we talk about keeping things pretty simple. Well, if you've practiced using gels in training, then for participants who are out there for longer and don't have access to those special drinks, that's a common sense thing to do.
And for the 3-hour runners, and I'm in that category these days, things like fuel belts, which you'll see a lot of runners out on the course there today, the everyday runners like that, where you get the small drink bottles, maybe 200 mils or something like that. That can be a mix of Gatorade and Jura, and I find I need that. So if you're out on the course for that period of time, it takes a bit of getting used to if you're carrying those belts, and they might bounce around a little bit or be a little bit uncomfortable. But I find if I don't have them, I'm really going to suffer.
And you need to practice with those. That's what we encourage people to do, and it's great to have them, but you don't want to be buying them at the expo and then expecting to wear them today, because that could rub if they're not fitting tightly. It is a good way to do it. They sit on your hips nicely, the fuel belts or the Camelback. Some people will run with those. They're a good way of doing it. Most uniforms now, shorts or tops for girls, have got a little spot in them you can fit a gel in, so that's a good way of doing it. They're very convenient and easy. Wash them down with water at the drink station. It's normally the way to go.
So we're seeing the lead pack. We've still got about 8 or 9 runners there. The pace is Edwin Correa and Wanjuki, Jacob Wanjuki seem to be doing their job. Elijah Tirop Serum from Kenya as well. So these guys are earning their keep today. Just interesting looking at Correa. He seems to have a bit of a forward lean. Looks a little more uncomfortable than the others, are a little more upright. That's probably just an idiosyncrasy of the way he runs.
Yeah, I tell you, Serum looks fantastic. He looks very relaxed. He's going very well, I think. So he looks pretty good. The wheels can fall off pretty quickly, but I think he's a younger guy. He's only 20. He's got a really good half time, so he's probably pretty comfortable at the moment, I would think. So there you go. We see that Japanese look of Grimace, and they're heading out. They do a little bit of a kink at the bottom end, so they're not far from the turnaround point, so they're heading down south. But yeah, they all look pretty relaxed.
The one who's going to be interesting, you spoke before, and we see him on the right of screen there in the green singlet, Yuki Kawauchi from Japan. Now, this guy's just extraordinary. The citizen runner. Steve, he has run something like 5 marathons. He ran he's run 2 PBs, under 2:09 twice, ran a marathon on June 2nd, Chitose in Japan, ran an ultra marathon of 50 kilometres on June 16. He defies logic and the modern approach to marathoning. How does he do it, do you think?
He does. We'll start calling him Marathon Man, I think. Yeah, and he works. He's got I don't know, it's an unusual... I think he's probably got a pretty settled lifestyle, and that allows him to just get that training done that he needs. And yeah, I'm not sure if he'll have a long career. We might enjoy him while we can, because I tend to think, he's not going to be around for 10 years. He tends to be, the rule is probably a couple of marathons a year, but he's going so well, and he's running personal bests, and it's all happening. Wait till he starts to struggle a little bit in a couple of the runs, and hopefully then, you'll see him back off a little bit, maybe just mix it up a little bit more. But it's a great story and a good example of what can happen.
So let's take a break from the action out on the course. Of course, the Gold Coast Airport Marathon is a fantastic tourism promotion for the Gold Coast, and Jessica Mears is out on with a bit of sun, sand and water behind her, with Jan Stuckey, the Queensland Minister for Tourism, Major Events, Small Business and, of course, Commonwealth Games coming up in 2018.
Stuckey, the Minister for Tourism, Major Events, Small Business and the Commonwealth Games. Now, Jan, what a remarkable morning this is at the Gold Coast. Couldn't have asked for a better one, hey?
It really doesn't get any better than this. This is the Gold Coast at its very best, and with the 35th Gold Coast Airport Marathon underway, I'm sure that those runners will be looking forward to finishing and enjoying what we have to offer.
Now, you've lived and worked around the Gold Coast for about 25 years or so. So what does an event like this really mean for, a place like the Gold Coast?
Well, I guess having lived here for 26 years and enjoying all that we have to offer, this event is certainly the highlight of our winter. And I guess to me, this is what epitomises winter. Those beautiful blue skies, those magic sunny days, and our runners from all over the globe coming to the Gold Coast to compete in this world-class marathon.
And with the Commonwealth Games, coming up in a few years' time, how does an event like the Gold Coast Marathon really help to sort of work towards something like the Commonwealth Games?
I think the marathon not only positions us as our capability to run major events and run them very, very well, it also shows just how versatile our facilities are as well. So in the lead up to the Commonwealth Games, we expect to be hosting a number of other events, whether they be swimming or athletic events like this. So what we're going to say is no one does it better than the Gold Coast and Queensland when it comes to major sporting events.
And how is the Commonwealth Games development coming along at the moment?
I'm really pleased to say that we're where we should be with the planning and the progress for the Commonwealth Games. It is less than 5 years. We've of course released our fantastic new emblem and are seeking sponsorship, and we're in the countdown phase.
So Gold Coast Marathon in the future, as the Minister for Tourism and events like these, where do you see it heading?
Well, the Newman government is very proud of this event and we're committed to supporting it to the future. And I just see really good times ahead. I did hear this year we actually had to put a cap on, but that was due to some construction works for the aquatic centre that is being prepared for the Pan Pacific Games next year, and of course the Commonwealth Games in 2018. So I really want to commend the organisers of this event. They absolutely put on a first-class event every single year and are to be commended, as are all those volunteers. And there's about 1,000 of them here. And to top it all off, to make it a really great event, it's wonderful to see almost $500,000 going to charity.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does make for a wonderful occasion, a wonderful weekend. And the Gold Coast has really turned it on for us with the weather today. When you look around, I'm definitely keen to nip down to the beach after this, I think. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jessica Mears with Queensland Tourism, Small Business and Commonwealth Games Minister Jan Stuckey. Commonwealth Games will be a massive event for Gold Coast in 2018, Steve, and you've been the chef de mission for the last Com Games, wasn't it, in New Delhi? It's a terrific thing for any city, and it will be Gold Coast time to shine.
Wow, it'll be such a special event, and I know, having spoken to a few of the overseas countries, they're all pretty keen to get to the Gold Coast, so it won't be a hard sell. It'll be a fantastic event up here, and it'll go quickly. Don't be under any illusions. 5 years, and we're seeing the infrastructure already being put in place. So looking forward to a great games up here.
And whether we see any of these guys back for the Commonwealth Games in 2018, who knows? The splits we've got for 15 kilometres, so 46.02 for the lead pack, so that's 5 of the top 9 or so. Edwin Correa, Elijah Serum, Yuki Kawauchi, Jacob Wanjuki and Jairus Chanchima. So a couple of paces in there. We've slipped just a fraction, Steve, but let's
starting
not
to worry.
be too alarmed. You're worried?
I'm not going to be a naysayer, am I? But, obviously I'd prefer in the 45s and low 45s, if anything. So we're just outside that. And, again, they can pick that up. But, yeah, I'm just sensing that they're keen on the water and keen on keeping the fluids up. So what does that suggest to me? And, that pack, look... we're seeing the shots where there's a bit of gap where people look like they are working hard. And you read that a little bit in the pack. To me, they're just battling a little bit to hold that pace.
So I guess the key will be when we see they go through halfway mark, 21.1k, and then when they come back to 30k, that's when the real race will begin. And I guess the real... we'll get on watch high alert for the race record.
Yep.
So we're looking at the Africans just pushing the pace through, heading down towards the turnaround point any moment. You're seeing in there Yuki Kawauchi, the legendary Japanese runner. I caught up with him yesterday at or on Friday at the Athletes Media Conference, and he's quite a character. He's got a massive following in Japan, but he also runs a lot of races. He's not tied to the corporate system, and it was interesting to hear what he had to say about how and why he runs so many races. It's something like 16 races so far this year, which really is, quite extraordinary for any runner in that regard.
He's a bit out of the box. He's not your normal type of Japanese professional athlete.
Yeah, let's have a listen to see what he had to say.
First of all, I love running marathon, and I actually don't have any coaches or I don't have any staff working for me. So I do however I want. I run however I like. So I think that's actually helping me to achieve something. Let's see. I would like to find someone who would like to run with me and then run as a family as well in the future. So I hope I will find one like lady like that.
That second question I asked him, Steve, was to see if he hoped his fame and fortune would find him a wife, and he thinks maybe it will, but she's got to be a runner. And I said, what about an Australian wife? And he said, okay, a runner and attractive. So there's a couple of criteria if you're looking to catch a Japanese runner, a famous one.
To do with a bit of hair work, although he has got hair, so he's obviously not had a very long marathon career, because we know that gets rid of your hair pretty quickly. I don't know if it's the worry or the mileage, but he's got too much hair to be a long-standing marathon runner. Gosh.
He's quite a rock star in Japan, Yuki Kawauchi, and they love their marathon running. The culture and the history and the tradition behind running. Whether it's distance running or marathon running in Japan is quite extraordinary. You ran a few races there. What was your take on the Japanese enthusiasm for running?
Wow, they are just so enthusiastic, and they're very organised, but they love their Ekiden racing. They're almost over the top. They are so fascinated with it. They're terrific. You go over there and you talk about Kawauchi. He would be treated like a rock star over there, and that is no exaggeration, because they love their marathon runners, male and female, over there. No doubt about that.
When he rocks up to a race, apparently it adds tens of thousands of people to the crowds that watch by the sideline, watch from the streets, and those that tune into television. So we're looking at the lead pack. So we've still got plenty of runners there, Steve. That's the one bonus. So we've gone through the turnaround. We're heading back north again. So we're probably around 17 kilometres, 16
7
to
and a
17.
half. They're back out on the freeway, and they just do a right turn and then head back to the coast. So they're at that turnaround. They do that little. That's sort of the little. I call it the little dot on the exclamation mark out there. So they're about to do that right turn. Then they do a little stretch and do a left and head back up the coast again. So they'll know exactly where they are.
Would you expect there to be any discussion amongst the group, given if we think they might be slightly off 64-minute half marathon pace? Does it need somebody to give them a G up? Would the non-pacers be saying, come on guys, we just need to pick it up a little bit?
Probably, yep. I sense that, and probably that might be why that Yuki's up there a little bit. He's just probably keen on, and we see Gebra as well, who's there, who they're probably a bit more to the front than I would have expected. So it's interesting. I think we've got the three Kenyan, probably pacemakers. We've got the three Kenyans at the back, and then the mix in the middle of a couple of Japanese and Ethiopian, which is a bit unusual. So It suggests to me that the Kenyans may be struggling a little bit. And that's unusual, but that's probably the way it's panning out at this point in time. Great part of the course here as well. Sorry to interrupt, but a lot of other runners on the right-hand side going past. That is such a terrific thing to have. A bit of yelling, a bit of interaction between those two groups along the roadway is really good as a runner to get that.
And as they head back through Hedges Avenue, the narrower stretch, they can almost touch each other, the elite guys, as they come down with the 3 hour plus runners. That's great for both of them, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and it's a terrific. It's one of the great things about marathon running. You can actually interact with the best in the world. Where else can you be actually out there on the day, and you're basically rubbing shoulders with, you're sort of playing golf with Tiger Woods. You're having a hit with Serena Williams.
You don't get on the pitch with the Wallabies, the Socceroos, or the State of Origin guys. So
and today you can do that, and at the end of the day, we all finish a marathon. So we all achieve that exactly the same goal.
Steve, quite a few turns through this southern section of the race. They're not tight turns. That doesn't really slow you down a little bit.
No, it breaks it up a little bit actually. Sometimes that straight road you can be get a bit sort of lost in that. So to break it up a little bit's not too bad. You probably don't. You got to get back in the pack a bit. Where are you around the bend? You're in the gutter, or are you out on the pack a bit? So it can be a bit annoying, but sometimes it's actually a good distraction at this stage. It's not so good near the end of the race when you're getting a bit tired, because any of that lateral movement, it takes energy to do that, and you haven't got a lot to spare. But at this point in time, it'd be fine. So they would actually be quite enjoying. They've got the lead car there, they know the time, so they'd be getting their split runs through, and you can see they're really got good crowds to support them along the road.
We see a few hams and showmen out there, runners, 3 hour plus runners heading south, so they're probably still only around 13 kilometres, and some great interaction between the elite pack of 9 runners, the Africans and 3 of the Japanese, and it's great for them to be able to cheer each other on like that. Steve, I'm not going to expect, given if we think the pace has slipped a little bit, that the non-pacers, so there's 3 pacers we think, but the non-pacers, they're not going to head to the front and push the pace. They back themselves to maybe negative split to come home a little bit quicker. So they'd just be urging the pacers to pick it up.
To
if
roll
they think
along a bit. They
yeah.
would. That's exactly right. They'd leave it up to those pacers. And, wow, look at those shots. It's a beautiful place to run up here. If nothing else, you're getting that. And it can help a little bit, just mentally. You think life's pretty tough. I'm hanging on. You look out to the right and you see the breakers coming in off the coast. It's a pretty good place to be running, to be honest. So where else would you want to be today but on the Gold Coast here, running the Gold Coast Airport Marathon? It's a pretty good postcard we're seeing. So they'll get caught up in that a little bit, let those pacers do their job and try and just, start to get into their work a little bit. They're starting to probably think, well, we're heading back in the right direction at least. I would be thinking they'd be breaking this up now. So, you're heading towards halfway. So that'll give them a real indication of the pace. That is when we might see some pressure on the pacers to say, okay, we're a little bit slower than what we want, or you'll get a sense of, no, we're happy with this. Whilst we're off the pace a little bit, it's a tough day today, so we're just going to sit in here and hopefully just hold that pace.
So we're probably coming up to sort of almost 19 kilometres, so we'll get a 20 kilometre split fairly soon, and then I guess the half split is the key one for us in that regard. The women, they're tracking very well. We've got actually, so they've split up a bit. We've got Alice Garici through 15k at 51.52, tracked by her countrywoman Helen Mugo, and they've developed a fairly healthy lead. Surprisingly, the Japanese Yukiko Akaba is slipped 40 seconds off the pace, Steve. That's quite surprising.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And the women, though, they probably, because they're running with the men, and they tend to run, they're pretty experienced. So I wouldn't be worried about that just yet. But, they're running at good pace. They're under 3:30k pace out there still. So I think there might have been a slight injection of pace there. So that doesn't surprise me a little bit. And it's more if you're out by yourself and you're starting to drop away. But if you can hold that, we'll keep an eye on those times. It's probably just under a minute between the first 2 and the next couple. So that's a bit of an indication. So you would sense that maybe Akaba's struggling a little bit. Why wouldn't you be on the lead pack? That's all, where the lead girls are. So
yes.
You'd be thinking, why wouldn't I be in them? It's a lot easier and psychologically better to be up with them.
Yeah, not really any paces through the women's field there, but a really good elite field. So we'll keep you posted. We'll have pictures of the women's marathon. We're sorry we can't bring you follow that race as well, but we'll certainly have the last 4 to 8 kilometres of the women's race a little bit later. So just following behind the men here, Steve. The body language, the way runners, I guess when you're racing an opponent, when we're talking championship or something like this, did you used to often look for little signals in your opponents, see if anyone's form is dropping, arms are tightening up, heads wobbling, that sort of thing?
Oh yeah, definitely, and you get a bit of a sense of that through the drink stations, but I don't know how, but you develop a sixth sense and you know how people are travelling. So, you might sort of drop a little bit to the back of the pack and just have a bit of a look, but you tend to be able to sense it in the pack about the ones who are travelling pretty well. I'm actually quite happy now. They seem to have packed up a little bit more now, and whilst they may have slowed a little bit, I think it's actually better for the race, because I think having the pack together, that will mean that they'll be able to keep rolling along a bit more consistently. So, you're looking people going in to grab their drinks, dropping to the back seat. I look at how quickly they respond to that. They grab their drink. Now they've got their drinks, and they're running through and packing up again pretty quickly. That's a really good sign. Chanchima there, bit slow. He's certainly making sure he's getting his fluid. I'd be, I don't know. I don't want to be dropping off too much. He's having a look around. I'm thinking, wow, get back on there quickly. Right, you got your drink, now get back on the pace. So, you want to establish that pack pretty quickly.
So, yeah, and look, that's the trouble with... okay, so Chanchima's back on. He's probably a key man for me, given his PB. I mean, if we can't get him running sub 2:10 here, then then something's wrong. You know, either it's a bit too warm or the paces haven't done their job properly.
Yeah, true. My only concern is he was 7th in the race when he ran his PB, so it was obviously a very fast race. So, you know, I like people who win races, and whilst they run fast, you've also got to be competitive when you're running those times. So, you know, I would always think of a person who's used to pushing the pace and running from the front, and that's what we're going to need today. You know, you're not going to get dragged out. At some stage, these guys are going to have to take the initiative and start pushing the race themselves. Now, I like a winner or a person who's been in the placings before, because you know they can run on in that second part of the race. So, you know, when I'm looking through, they will have done their history on each other. They'll know exactly where they're at, and I think, you know, that's where you're looking at Kawauchi's got great experience. You know, he's been around for a while. He's won Sydney Marathon last year, so he's got really good run 4th here. So, you know, he's one. I'd be surprised they're not running off him a bit.
Yeah, Kawauchi, actually, just mentioning, not to obsess about him too much, he's a fascinating bloke, but he's actually set himself a stated public goal of cracking the Australian trifecta of marathons. So he won Sydney Marathon last year in a new course record. He's back to run here and win here, and he stated a goal of trying to win Melbourne as well, which is in early October. That would be extraordinary if we had one person win all 3 leading Australian marathons.
Yeah, it would have never happened. I can't think that would have happened. There may have been an Australian that would have done it in the past, but at the moment they're going well, and he's got a chance. He's in the pack. No reason why he can't do it. So he's certainly got the chance to do it today. And realistically, he said, what did he want to achieve today? He wanted to run 2:9:59, and that's good, because the Kenyans will sometimes say, oh, you know, God will will me to a fast time, and well, at least he's practical. He said, that's what I want to run, and I think he's probably, realistically, he could run that on this course.
The women, just having a closer look at those times, Steve, they're 3 minutes ahead of race record pace. So
no surprises there.
No. So
how am I going? I'm winning at the moment. I'm pushing it early, so I'm
No, I think your predictions are looking good.
I'm looking pretty good at the moment, and that actually gives me confidence that the ladies that are 3rd and 4th, they're actually still running pretty. They're 40 seconds off that pace, but they're still well within that sub 2:30 time as well. So that augurs well for the women's race.
Could have a few under the race record there in the women. So that's Alice Garici and Helen Mugo, both from Kenya. We'll bring you pictures of them a little bit later. So 2:26 pace, which is right in line with their PB. And Steve, the closeness of the runners here. Is the potential to be a distraction for the lead guys that they got the other guys coming so close?
Yeah, you know what? The potential is that because it's so crowded, some of the runners will tend to just come over this side a little bit, maybe to get around a slower runner, and they might have an issue where the runners are coming so fast towards them that they have to jump back quickly to make sure that they don't get in their road. So I don't think they'd be too concerned about it. They've got the cones there, and normally it's actually quite good to have such close interaction, because you're not aware of the roadway or the heat. You know, you're probably protected a little bit by it. Have a little bit of a look at the colour and the issues and the clothing and costumes that other people are wearing.
Almost a bit of Tour de France feel, isn't it? The way the crowds are compacted so close in the legendary cycling race.
It is, yeah.
It adds to the atmosphere. A sea of discarded cups there from probably, I reckon, 3,000 to 4,000 of the runners would have been through this point by now. So we're just heading back towards Surfers Paradise. So we've missed
is that Mermaid Beach Surf Club, I think, just on the left
is actually,
there. So that's about where they are.
We can't bring you a half marathon split. We've got a bit of a timing issue there, but we're certainly through halfway. They were tracking around 2 hours 10, we think, on the 20k split. So the opportunity, hopefully, to pick up the pace through the back end. But we haven't often seen negative splits. In fact, the last 7 years, I think we've only had a negative split on 2 occasions, and that's when it's been a really slow front end of sort of 68, 67 or something like that. So,
and I think we're probably thinking, if we work out, I'm sure we'll get it, but if they were 46 minutes through 15k, and then you're adding your 15 and a half on, so you're probably looking at probably a 64.5, 65. So I think they're still probably okay. We'll see, because if there's an injection of pace, you'll know that they've gone through halfway, realising, we need to get going a little bit here. But doesn't seem to be too much panic in there. So I think they're probably through in about 65 and content with that.
But it's certainly not as if they wait until the 5K splits to gauge where they're at. They would know exactly how they are for pace at any given point. And with GPS watches, I mean, you can find out instantaneously if these guys use the GPS. It can tell them, exactly what pace they're running at any given moment in time.
Yeah, it can, that's right. Almost too much information sometimes. I think, you're becoming conscious of the watch rather than just running for feel and letting the race unfold a little bit as it does. But it's a great advantage to have those splits right on your arm or on your wrist. And we didn't have it when I was running. I used to love to see that lead car. And if you're seeing the lead car, you're going pretty well. But you also get the split information. They would often have the running clock, and then they'd give you the last kilometre that you ran. So that was always good information and good positivity. If you're up there and seeing that lead car, you're in amongst it.
What about for everyday runners, Steve? You talk about the technology, and I run with a GPS watch, and I look at it a bit too much, but heart rate monitors, I mean, can that all overcomplicate it a little bit for everyday runners?
I think it's great in training, because there's a tendency to overtrain, and if you've actually got the heart rate monitors, that will control that a little bit. So if you're under training, I didn't wear them a lot, but they can be really good feedback information. You can analyse that later on, but you can also run to it during a run. So I like it in training. I'm less conscious of it in the race. If you can try and sort of run a bit more to feel in the race, then that's a better situation to be under, I reckon. But great information to have, and certainly for people who overtrain, a real benefit. I often, a lot of split times, I would write split times up my arm and, ride on there so you're on. Because you're out there, it sounds easy when you're saying, I'm going to run 4-minute Ks or 5-minute Ks, but you get all caught up, 5:16s, what's that? But by the time you've worked out what it is, you're up to the next K. So I used to have them on my arm, and it was easy to just see that and say, I'm going well or a little bit off, and stick to that.
It's amazing how quickly your mind can get muddled, particularly through the second end of the race. It's that fog of fatigue makes it quite hard to make sense of your splits. I know, when I ran 2:26 on the Gold Coast here, splits just went out the window. It's just survival the last 10K because it does make it hard to keep track of that.
And I used to say you almost, early on, you're enjoying the view, and, you can see the beautiful esplanades along here we're running, and, your peripheral vision is really wide. It's probably, 180 degrees, but I tell you, as you're getting towards in the 30s, anything with a 3 in front of it, the peripheral vision starts closing in, and you're basically looking straight down the road. All you want to do is see those kilometre marks, and then hopefully, that band across the finish line that tells you your job's done.
And when you're having those bad days at the office, the idea of contemplating something you'd never do, sitting in the gutter, can be so appealing. The fact that you want to take the weight off your legs, but these guys aren't taking the weight off their legs for hopefully not another hour exactly. The elite runners, so we'll be going through. So we're probably coming through about 23 kilometres now, Steve. So we've still got a good, healthy pack of 8 or 9 runners. This is about the time which they split up a bit last year. We had 8 or 9 guys together. Then they split between sort of 20 and 25. Between 25 and 30, we were down to 2 runners. So if we can keep, 7 or 8 guys together through 30K, we could see the pace pick up. And if they need to, gather some time for a race record, you'd be a bit more confident then?
I would. And there is no doubt that it's a race of attrition. So the more people we've got for longer along the journey, the more chance we've got of running fast. Early on, it probably suggests that the pace is not that fast because you've got so many in the pack. But whilst that's true early, later on, having a lot of people around you actually means that the chances of getting a couple through to kick it on is a higher possibility of that happening. They run through a few roundabouts across. There's a little few twists and turns in this. It's probably the only section of the course where you're really twisting and turning a bit. The rest of it's pretty straightforward. So they're heading back, starting to turn up towards, get up towards Surface Paradise now. So that's where it starts. I'll be interested to see if they start breaking up through from here through that main beach section. That's where they're out in the open a little bit more. They've still got a lot of the journey to go. That's where it starts happening. Exactly as you said, between that 25 and 30k mark, that's where we'll start to see the race unfold.
No conversation, no interaction going on here. That's been and gone in the early part of the race.
No,
any guys who were the chattiest in the first 5 or 10k of a race from your running days? Anybody who just jabberers who you found annoying that they would want to talk?
Oh yeah, there's there was a lot of Swahili spoken, and or a lot of European languages more so when I was running. So we didn't have a lot of Australian chatter. But the New Zealand's Kiwis always love a chat. We'd share a few drinks and have a bit of a chat along the way and pal up a bit. And Hugh Jones didn't mind a chat in the day. So I think you tend to the Commonwealth countries tend to pal up a little bit with each other. But they'll be doing a bit of chat here, but I tell you, you're not talking about the beautiful coastline and what a great day we're having out here. Like we talk about, this is a road race. It's not a fun run. There's no fun out here, so they'll be chatting about main, and you haven't got a lot of breath. That's what people say. Oh, you're having a good conversation when you're out there. Wow, we are puffing, mate. We're not hanging around having a conversation. As you know, you're getting you want all your breath and all your oxygen to go to your muscles, not to your mouth.
Well, they're running just below their anaerobic threshold, and I guess that's the thing for these guys, just knowing what that threshold is, and that's something that really only comes with experience, and I guess that's also part of the interesting part of the journey for everyday runners, as they think, well, I don't know how fast I can run or how to pace myself. Yeah. That does come with experience.
It does, and you tend to. It's one of those things in a marathon that early on in your debut, it's the great unknown. So you're excited and your anticipation levels are high and you're going and you're just running. Whereas when you learn a little bit, you tend to say, right, I'm experienced now. I know what to do. You run a better paced race, but then you also get the nagging, am I going to hit the wall? So it's a bit of early on's great because you don't know how hard it's going to get. So you tend to just go in there a bit oblivious to that, which is a good thing. And then as you get a bit more experience, it's a bit of, come on, I know what to do, but I'm just hoping that I can stave off the wall or the fatigue. And so a bit of experience is good. You don't want so much that you're scared of the event, but a little bit helps along the way, I reckon.
And you can still make misjudgments. You were telling me yesterday about when you ran Boston, how you let the lead pack go, and that was a day that maybe tactically wasn't one of your better ones.
That's right, yeah, but I was very tactically sound, but I made a mistake that day, I admit that, so it didn't happen all that often in my career, but I chose to go with the second pack at a slower pace and hopefully be able to control a pretty consistent, even pace. But as it turns out that day, they ran fast early and never came back. I caught a few, but not as many as I was hoping. And whilst I was running through, you can't run through that much. If you're not in this pack, it's highly unlikely you are going to win the race. Marathon running is very much a race of attrition, and we're seeing that these people are going to be the ones who will be figuring in the finish.
Now, somebody we've just seen towards the back of the pack, haven't spoken about him much, Samson Barmau from Kenya. He could figure in the mix. He's run 2:8:52 in Rome last year. He was 6th in Rome this year in 2:9:47. But again, you made the point earlier, Steve, that 6th in sub 2:10 isn't the same as running 2:9 on your own. You've had a lot of help. It's been a pretty quick race. Dubai, I don't know if you saw the times from Dubai Marathon this year. 10 guys sub 2:5. The depth was just extraordinary.
Right. And that's it. And obviously pretty good conditions. I think they set that race up for a very fast time. So whilst they do run quick there, again, if some of those runners were to come here and say, well, they've got to do it a bit harder here, and sometimes that will find a different character trait that might affect the outcome of the race. So I'm not sure. Samson's been at the back of the pack. I always think if you're at the back, you're the first one to go. So I always worry about being at the back. But whereas Chanchima we saw respond really well, went through the drink station, had a bit of a look behind. No one's catching us. We're all going well. He's sort of had a bit of a feel for where they're at. Now he's just settled back in there. Got a very high arm action.
I'm just going to say, Steve, that's typically as you'd advise, beginner runners or young runners, you'd say keep your arms low around your hip, because if you've got them high, you're going to tense up on the shoulders. That's just obviously his style, but it looks ungainly, doesn't it?
It does, but the amount of training he's done and the history of his running, you develop a pretty efficient style. It seems to be what suits and works for him. So again, it's what's natural, and you might get a sprints coach getting him and saying that's just not working for you. You need to drive a lot more with your arms. But I remember Chris Wardlaw, my coach, saying at one stage he actually contemplated cutting his arms off. because it was
Chris was
extra weight.
hardcore.
He was hardcore, and he thought, well, I don't really use them in a marathon. They give you a bit of balance, but they're not really, you're not using all that much. And he thought, well, if I cut them off, it's less weight I've got to carry.
Yep.
He probably then thought there may be some other things that you need your arms for. He decided that it was probably worth. We weighed it up and went for common sense, we'll say, won't we? I think.
Chris never suggested that to you, did he? As he tried to take you to a whole new level.
No, he did take me to a whole new level in a few things, but cutting my arms off wasn't one of them.
So we're looking at the lead pack here. So we've still got 7 or 8 guys together. So this is positive. We haven't had any splits for a little while. We'll try and bring those to you. But we think they're still running sort of around 2:10 pace. So we've got the paces still there. They're doing their job. Korea, Wanjuki, Elijah Tirop Serum.
Hidru in the middle there. I think it might be Moroccan or Ethiopian. So we've got a bit of a mix there. It's interesting. A couple of Japanese, a couple of Ethiopians, a couple of Kenyans that are probably figuring in the race.
Yep,
Ito looks pretty good.
So that's a name that wasn't featuring in our top 10. Tewelde Hidru from Eritrea, of all places. 2:16.13 is his PB, so he's punching above his weight a little bit to be running on this pace. I don't know when his PB was, so it could be a little while ago. Guys can take a couple of minutes off their PBs if they sort of, go into hibernation from the racing scene and put in a good 6 or 9 months together. You can see those dramatic improvements.
It's unusual though, and I wouldn't expect that he'd be really figuring it. I mean, he's not even. I'm looking at the lead up, and I'm saying, well, who have I got to worry about in this race? If he's a 2:16 runner, unless it was at altitude, I probably would discount him. So he's a real surprise packet. He's running a great race. Eritreans have a very, very good World Cross Country record. Their team at World Cross is often on the podium, so they have a great history in World Cross Country races. Less so in the marathon, but they're African nation who's emerging, to be fair to say. And today could be the emergence of one of their up-and-coming athletes.
Well, we've certainly never had a winner from Eritrea at the Gold Coast Airport Marathon, so whether today is the day. But look, we've got some splits now for 25k, Steve. So 1:17, they're through 25k. So look, it's still there and about. So it's a little bit hard to tell. We almost see a little bit of the pack breaking up off screen through a drink station.
I reckon they've picked up a little bit. In my calculations, your 3 minutes is you get to 1:15. You're adding a couple of minutes on, which is 2 seconds. So I reckon they're probably back to 3:06, 3:07 pace. So that's good. I reckon they've injected a bit of pace on the way back. So maybe going through halfway, they've realised that we need to keep this going a little bit.
And that might be telling because that's Jairus Chanchima in the blue, who was certainly on paper the race favourite, PB at 2:7.43. So he seems to be struggling there. We can see he looks as if he's sweated quite heavily, although a bit of water from drinks he's probably thrown over himself there. But if he's... Oh, hang on.
He's one of those runners.
Jumping back on.
I don't like doing this, and I'm calling
it's
it
hard.
with you. I would have thought that he was too far off. That we talk about the leash, and once you break that leash, the rubber band, once you extend outside of about 10 metres, there's a suggestion that you're gone. But he tends to go up and back, has a bit of a look around, and then next minute, like we're calling it, he's about to drop off this pack. We are, let's be honest. He's battling, but next minute he'll be up the front, sitting on the back of those pacemakers. But to me, it's not an efficient way to run.
No.
So you're wasting energy when you're sprinting up and sprinting back like that. I'd far prefer that you're just sitting in there at a nice even pace, as we see the Japanese and Hidru, the Eritrean, and Ethiopian. I don't know. They're certainly getting going, because on their faces, the grimace, the effort that they're putting in here, to me, sounds like they're starting to get going.
So this is coming back through, I guess, the heart of the Gold Coast, Surfers Paradise. They've just come past, I think that's Cavill Mall. We've just come through there, the intersection with the waterfront road there. So is Chanchima still there? He's still hanging on. So it's a healthy pack. 7 or 8 guys there. So we think we've got Chanchima, Gebru, Kawauchi, Barmau, Mwangi. I think Takahashi has dropped off there. I think we've just got the one Japanese in there, Steve, from what we've seen.
Be a couple still. I think, is it Ito or Takahashi?
Okay, all right.
I think Ito and Kawauchi are still there. I reckon a couple of Japanese, a couple of one Ethiopian, one Eritrean, 2 Kenyans. So, yeah, the Kenyans, they're not dominating as much as we expected, and, you know, great credentials, but I'm just sensing it's warm, it's hot, they're getting into their game a bit here, and there could be some change. We're about to stick with us, because I sense we're not far from something happening.
Let's go to an ad break.
Travel further for less? Gold Coast Airport is well connected with direct flights to popular destinations throughout Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, Singapore, and to Japan. We have over 350 direct flights a week with a range of leading airlines. And flying from the Gold Coast means you spend less time travelling and more time enjoying your next holiday. See where you could fly to at Gold